Hey everyone, my name is Fiona with Fiona's Hand Analysis Readings, and today I'm going to kind of talk about something a little bit different. I actually had an experience with a kind of a crazy housemate earlier, actually last year, and I wanted to kind of share it because there was a lot of things that I kind of experienced that I'd never experienced before, as far as living with other people, and just things that I learned during the process that I want to share that could maybe help someone out. So I was looking for a place to stay, and I posted something on Craigslist, and I'd already met up with a few people, and one woman responded, and she seemed pretty nice. She was a teacher, and so we Skyped, and the place looked okay. She had 2 dogs. And she said, in exchange for the rent being a little bit lower, I would help walk the dogs. So I agreed to that. And part of this video, I'm going to try to keep everyone anonymous. I'm not going to use people's real names. I'm just going to, talk about the person. So when I moved in, I noticed that, it's the first time I walked in there, it was like, okay, it's a little bit messy, and it kind of smells a little bit like dog poop, a little bit, but I didn't really think much. I was just like, okay, I'm paying 700 plus utilities for this room, and the room was actually tiny. It was like a closet, and so I actually had a foldable bed, and I had to fold it and put it in the closet just to have space in my room to use my desk or my keyboard. So I moved in there, and things seemed to go all right for the first couple of months, and it was always a little bit annoying sometimes. It was just the place to be really messy. She had a lot of stuff in the house. I'm more of a minimalist, so I like to have the least amount of stuff in a room. And I just remember she would just there'd be all these stains on the carpet too, and I figured, oh, maybe the dogs had accidents earlier on or whatever. She said it was because of the previous owner. They had a puppy and it peed everywhere. But actually, when I was first moving in, I remember walking to her room and there was dog shit on the carpet, and I was like, whoa, and it looked like it'd been days or weeks old. She hadn't really done much about it. I had actually put the dogs in her room to move in my stuff. And she'd always say oh, I'm gonna clean up the house, it's gonna be okay. And I should have taken that as a first kind of a warning sign. The place was pretty messy. It was kind of hoarder-ish, borderline hoarder-ish. The whole garage was packed with boxes and boxes of stuff. She was a elementary school teacher, and she was also a real estate agent on the side. Things started getting a little weird around the 2.5 month mark. The property manager had given us a notice to move out. It was right before the Measure M, which was all about renters control and protecting renters' rights. So right where that was being voted upon, we were actually being asked to leave the premise, and we had 60 days to do so. So also during that period, my housemate was let go from her job, her teaching job, and she seemed a little bit worried, but it didn't really, I didn't really think much of it. And then when it started getting down to the time where we started to have to move out, I remember, she'd asked me, can you help me move my dresser? And the dresser was this huge thing, this big dresser, and I said, yeah, I'll help you move it, and I didn't think that, she wanted me and my friend to move it, but during that weekend I ended up having to look at other places, so I didn't end up moving the dresser. And so when I came home one day, I found the dresser actually shoved in my doorway, blocking my door, so I couldn't even get into my room. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then she started saying that, oh, I should have, moved her dresser, and I need to move it right now, and I need to go hire someone to move her dresser. And this is a humongous dresser, it's basically you have to move it down like 20 steps. And I was just like, wow, I can't believe she's doing this. So I moved it out of my door so I could get in, and then she started banging, banging on the door, kind of screaming. I had someone on the line I was talking to, just because I was in disbelief that someone would do this, and she started banging on the door, like yelling and screaming. Basically, you know, I haven't been helping around the house and I need to move this dresser and I deserve to be yelled at and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, I've been the clean one. I've been the one that's like, I never really hung out downstairs just because it was such a mess and it smelled bad. And I was always mostly in my room too. I never, you know, if I had a friend over, we always hang out in my room because that was the only really clean area to sit down. And so I broke down in tears. I didn't know what to do. I really thought I had done something wrong at the time. So I actually went outside to the neighbor's house and started asking people. She like chased after me and started screaming to like, move it yourself. And I really didn't know what to do. You know, at the time I really thought like, oh, I'd done something wrong. I was, you know, I left a dish out on the counter or something, or you know, I just was like, whoa, what did I do? Is it because I'm paying less rent? I deserve to be yelled at? So all these things were kind of going through my mind. And, you know, a few days later, things started to be okay, I guess. She stopped, you know, it started to even out. And when I confronted her about it, you know, I said, you know, it was kind of not cool that you just screamed at me like that out of the blue. And she said, oh, well, you agreed you would help move the dresser and you didn't, and you ended up looking at houses instead. And she kind of went into that whole like went ballistic on me again, started screaming, started accusing me of stealing stuff from her, got in my face like when I was in the kitchen. So it was really kind of traumatic. It was like, whoa, I've never, all the years of, you know, being around other people, living in housemates, roommates and stuff, I've never had an experience like this. So I ended up talking to a few friends, and they said definitely it's not cool that she's doing that. And, you know, one time I remember, because I was so shooken up and I had to teach piano the next, like in a few hours later, and I was just praying that she wouldn't start screaming at my student or something. One time though, I did have a student and she yelled at him like, don't park in the guest parking, even though that's what the guest parking is for. So he thought she was joking, and I was like, actually she's not joking, she will call the police. So just maybe park on the road or something, because she's kind of psycho. And this is a person that, I mean, she said that she went through some pretty traumatic stuff, in her past. She has no family, she just has her 2 dogs. And she was always one of those people that would, you know, dogs were always more important than people, kind of people. So, you know, talking to her was always very difficult. she'd always have something negative to say about someone. She was always complaining about stuff. And, you know, I wouldn't try to out of my way go talk to her. I just always would, you know, if she had something to say, I'd just listen to her and just kind of nod and be like, okay, yeah. But really I just kind of kept to my own business. I really, you know, didn't really have much in common with her. Then there's this one instance where she had thrown my shoes out in the rain when I went home for Thanksgiving. And I just was like, oh, did you throw my shoes out in the rain? And she's like, oh, they were in the way. And then so I put my shoes out, they were wet. I put them up on the kind of it was outside, but it was kind of by a window thing that kind of stuck out. So I kind of put them there so they would dry. And she like flipped out and she said, oh, you can't say anything because you're only paying $700 a month. And I said, just please don't touch my shoes. Like, I'm trying to dry them because I need to wear them. And then she got in my face, started screaming at me, and called me fucking bitch and stuff like this. And then she actually spat on me, and like I pushed her out of my face. And then she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna call the police because you battered me." And I'm like, "Wait, didn't you just spit on me?" So yeah, and I should have done this earlier. I had a friend tell me, like, get a restraining order. You know, she's like threatening you. She's like, you know, trying to make you feel scared. One time I had a friend over, and she started acting really weird. We were in the kitchen and we were just grabbing some snacks, and or we're trying to go into the kitchen, and I was just like, "Oh, I just want to grab something out of the fridge to eat and we'll hang out in my room." And she's like, "Oh, you're scaring me. You're scaring me. I'm gonna call the police. I'm gonna call my friend." And we're just like, "Okay, we'll wait for you when you're done. I just need to grab a snack so we can go get out of here." And she like called her scary friend, this big biker guy who came over and like banged on the door, and I literally almost like threw up. I was so nervous. I didn't know like what to expect from her, just because I didn't really know much about the legal system. I didn't really know much about my rights as a person. I just kind of, you know, never been in this situation before, so I never had to think about these things. And this guy was like, I mean, he was like screaming at my friend and I, and we were just like, you know what? You know, he'd parked in the guest parking, you know, and she was trying to say that I did all these things that I didn't do, accusing me of stealing stuff, of only paying this amount of rent, which was our agreement when we first moved in. And so she called over her scary friend, and just tried to basically to scare us, I guess. So the police she ended up calling the police, and I was actually glad she did that because I was scared her friend was going to do something, or I don't know. It was really strange. It was really kind of fucked up, and how she just kind of used him to like scare the shit out of us. It worked. And the police officer said, "You need to get a restraining order. You know, if this is happening, you need to get a restraining order." And the same thing happened when, you know, when she called the police, when I pushed her out of my face after she had spit on me. The police officer told me to get a restraining order. So I finally got a restraining order, but it was like the last week that I was living there. And I wrote out every single incident where she threatened me or screamed at me or accused me of something, or my students or my friends. And I just documented everything because I had everything in my journal, and I had someone serve it to her, and she literally broke down and lost her shit again. The police came to the house, and they're like, "Well, someone, you know, what's up with this restraining order?" And I said it's a peaceful contact restraining order, so it doesn't mean that you have to be within a certain distance from the person, but it just means that you can't, you know, yell at someone, you can't scream at them, you have to be peaceful around them and let them conduct business. So that really helped. I wish I would have done that sooner. It was scary at the court because I was kind of by myself, but you know, I ended up actually having someone there serve her the papers because she wasn't going to pay me back my deposit. Basically, she ended up using my whole deposit to clean up after her dog's mess. So I was only there for 3.5 months, and she wanted me to pay pretty much my entire deposit to clean the carpets. And it was something that I'd agreed to in the beginning, and so I couldn't get out of that. So I ended up losing a lot of money just because of agreeing to that on the email. So just for future reference, I would not agree to anything on email, just because they can use that against you. But I really learned to, you know, in the court, just to have my facts really straight. You know, I was only there for 3.5 months, and she wants me to clean up after years and years of dog piss and shit on the carpet. And she'd written me a check that was like all in red ink, and I couldn't even deposit that, so I wanted that written in black ink. And I had proof, I had photos of the place before I moved in. I had testimonies, witness testimonials, so people that wrote out, what they thought of the place, what they saw of the place, and stuff like that. And yeah, I had some video of her. I wish I would have gotten video of her when she was screaming and yelling at me. That's kind of, I didn't really cover my ass on that point, but because I'd agreed in the email that I would pay for half the cleaning, I ended up losing my whole deposit, pretty much my whole deposit. So just looking back on this experience, I didn't really meet her in person. I didn't really have, I could have probably asked for references or something, they don't really have that though. When you're moving into a place, you usually have your landlord's references and stuff like that that you have to show the next landlord that you're moving into. But in this case, I had no reference, and she'd always talked poorly about all of her housemates. All of her previous housemates, she had nothing good to say about them. She was always gossiping and just telling me about how crappy everyone was and how everything was happening to her. So it was just like this kind of this victim mentality. So, when I talked to my friend, he said that sometimes it's basically all this anger and resentment that builds up inside, and then I just happened to be there when she exploded, and I, experienced all of that. So, yeah, it was definitely a learning process, and it was a very traumatic one too. I think, the groundwork as far as this whole being yelled at, being screamed at was something that I hadn't experienced. I mean, when I was really young, when my dad would get very angry, he would really, yell, and so it kind of reminded me of that, of just the way she would yell at me, and I just didn't feel like I could stand my ground around her. I felt like because, she was, I don't know, she had a lot of leverage, I guess. She just said that oh, everyone in this unit wants you to move out, no one likes you. Yeah, it was one time I remember there was a filing cabinet by the dumpster. Clearly this person was trying to throw away their filing cabinet, and I said, "Dear neighbor, I would love to use your filing cabinet if you're getting rid of it. Please call me." And I came home that night with that note taped to the front door in black marker, and it says, "Please stay away from other people's property. We will be happy when you have left this premise." And it was the writing was all scribbly and all really creepy writing, and it freaked me out. I didn't like staying there alone at the house. I remember I just never knew if she was going to come in my room with a knife and try to kill me or something. I always had this fear in the back of my mind that she would just lose it and she would try to kill me or something. So that's my experience with this crazy housemate. So, sometimes you don't know until it's people are right on the edge, and sometimes it's just, it was that eviction plus her getting fired from her teaching job that really set her off. And I should have known better and gotten that restraining order right away. I should have had my camera ready to film her and all this stuff. I mean, now I know, but back then I was just I hadn't ever anticipated any of this would happen. I just had no idea it was going to turn out like this. But I'm currently living in a great place, and I love where I'm living. Last place was a teaching to me. It was okay, this is what I don't want. And I had to go through that process in order to learn, my rights as a human, the legal system, filing for a restraining order, filing for small claims. So I had to do all of that, and it was very time consuming and expensive, but it's you gotta know your rights as a human and what your renter's rights are, your human rights are, and all that stuff. So yeah, if you have a story of a kind of a sociopathic, narcissistic housemate, I would love to hear your story. Yeah. Okay, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.